Hi everyone, my name is Mathieu, and in this video I'll show you how I've made these 3 river tables. So it's not one, not two, but 3 different river tables, and I'll take you through all the steps in full detail. So I'll say it from the start, so I'm not a woodworker, but I'm more a specialist in everything that has to do with epoxy resins and composites. So this might be another approach that some other woodworkers have more experience with wood. I have more experience with like how to use epoxy resins well, and I'll take you through all the details. I've already made a first video, but you can also check it out in the description down below if you want to see that first video. The first video was not with a voiceover like I'm doing right now, and so a few guys commented like, please share some comments, like speak over the video so we can understand a bit better what you're doing. So that's why I've decided to make this video. So to start with, a good friend of mine helped me out with like the slabs and the woodworking. So we have some walnuts and some olive wood. So in the first one, this was made with elm. You can see in the top right. I did it with a green table, and I had like these like to make a blue one with the olive wood, like to have like a bit more of a Tuscan feel, or like the oceans you have in Croatia. I visited that country a few years ago, and I was like mesmerized by seeing the color of the water there, and so I decided to make this table with blue and green. The other one, so with the walnuts, was made with black because I like the classy feel that you have with black. So everything starts with like preparing the slabs, so cutting them in half and planing them totally flat. Then I filled, but this was not in the shot. I lost some videos while filling like the little crevices and little knots in the wood, but these were filled first with epoxy. Then I flattened everything like you can see here with a disc sander, and just going to remove all the bark, because this is quite important. The bark is not the strongest surface to bond like the two surfaces together. So I mean like the epoxy resin and the bark, there's a big chance that it might break off, and mostly where it will happen is at the bark. So the bark will stay on your epoxy resin and the rest of the wood would fall off. So that's why I'm removing all the bark, and then I'm just filling the voids with epoxy resin. And here I'm taking some measurements. So how do you do this? It's quite simple. So you align like 10 points in length, and then you just take the average, and then you just multiply it by the height that you want to fill, and then you come up with a number that will tell you how much resin you'll need. So I'm using the glass cast tints, so you can see they have multiple colors, and I also showed like the 3 colors that I'll be using here. So I think it was Prussian blue, and then blue and black. So the black is for this table, so it's in 3 parts here, and I went for a squared table with the final measurements of 85 by 85 centimeters. And then it's just a matter of filling the void. So the mold was made out of melamine, so it's in theory it's not sticky to epoxy, but I added some release agent as well to have like a good possible removal of the part in one piece, because sometimes what might happen is that the heat of the epoxy resin while going in exothermal reaction might generate like quite high amount of heat, and that's causing sometimes the melamine to bond onto the epoxy. So I see some people using flashing tape, or I think it's packaging tape. It's possible as well, but here you'll get like a perfect finish out of mold that just needs to be sanded. So first step, so like I'm not saying this is the best way, but this is the way how it works for me. I like to pour a first like little amount of epoxy resin into the mold, and then put the wood on top. So there are 2 reasons. First, it will seal the wood from the bottom. And second thing is that it will also, like if you have a leak in your mold box, you're pretty sure you can only lose the resin that was into the box at first. So here I think it's about 900 grams. So the measurements are on the glass cast tins. It's 100 by 45 if you do it by weight. And I would strongly advise you to do it by weight. So you add 100 grams of the A and then 45 grams of B. So here, pretty important. So what you're seeing here are some crystals into the epoxy resin. So before you mix, make sure that your epoxy is in the best condition possible. So Easy Composites or Glass Cast will put a sticker on it. It's a yellow sticker, and it's telling you like to keep consistent temperatures in the workshop where you store them, or have them like what I'm doing here is like reversing the crystallization of the epoxy by adding some heat. So this is like called in French au bain-marie. So you heat it in some hot water, and that way you're pretty sure that the entire mass of epoxy resin will heat at the same rate, and that's removing the crystals. Second thing is like during the winters, it can also help you to get a lower viscosity of your epoxy resins. So here you can see it turns perfectly clear again, but just to make sure, I'll be passing it through a paint strainer, I think it's called, just to remove any more debris that might be in the epoxy resin. So important as well is to cover up your epoxy. So I've used some packaging tape. I don't know how it's called. It's to store food in into your fridge, just to avoid moist going into your epoxy as well. So moist is a second problem that epoxy would not like, because it's causing the epoxy to bubble. And as you can see, the glass cast is self-leveling and self-degassing in a way. So it will remove any bubbles over time. So you don't need to degas it. If you can, it's always better to do it. But here I didn't degas it, and as you can see, all the bubbles rise, and then with a heat torch or a heat gun or even a hair dryer, if you have it at home, you can remove all the bubbles that are still into your epoxy resin. So here you can see it. I'm doing this in 3 pours, so it's very important. Do not do everything in 1 pour. Because of the exothermal reaction. So glass cast is a special resin that can go up to, I think theoretically it's up to 5 centimeters in height, but it also depends on the volume that you're casting. So I would strongly advise you not to go over 1.5 centimeter per pour. So if you measure everything, then you can calculate how much you need. So what you could also have seen in the shots before is that I'm post-curing these parts in the sun. So it went up to 60 degrees. Post-curing means that your epoxy resin will be stable up to these temperatures over time. So for example, if you're casting your tables at 15 degrees during the winter and then you put them outside at 30 degrees, there's a big chance that your epoxy might warp or cause some unpleasant surprises on you during the summer. So here you can see it's removal, very easy thanks to the Easy Lease that was applied first on the melamine, and then it's just like going with wedges all the way around, and do not force one side, and normally the part will just pop off the mold like in a go, and it makes like a nice sound during that demolding. So here you can see the colors. So this is a bit darker blue, and the other one is more like green tinted. And the thing that I'm doing here is like in the first tutorial that I made, I was using the Ikke to flatten the entire table surface. But here I was dealing with a table of 85 by 85 centimeters, so it was a bit too big. So I decided to make, I think it's called a router jig or something. So I have 2 sides and then a jig in the center just to flatten the entire surface. So this took me a bit of time, just like to make a bit of engineering to know how everything is fitting. I bought a new router, so it's like quite a strong one. It's a DeWalt. Maybe I'll add it in the comments which one I'm using, and then a flattening bit of 25 millimeters. So I'm passing over the entire surface, and that will result in like a totally flat surface of the table. So I'm repeating this 2 times. So first side, then I turn it around and repeat. Like something important to know is that when you start with the thickness of your wood, keep in mind that it will need some flattening after it. So why do you need it, even if you have used the flattening of the wood in the beginning, like you could see in the beginning of the video? it's because like the epoxy resin will soak into the wood and then it can cause some warping. And so it's better to do this once again after the epoxy is poured. So now I'm pretty sure, like after the post-curing of the resin and flattening, that this table will stay flat over time. So then I'm just passing it through the drum sander just to have like a good finish, quick and easy. But you'll also see later on I can also do this by hand, but I'm pretty sure that this is like more accurate to pass it through the machine. So then it's just a matter of sanding. I think it was around 150, then 250, and then 400 to finish with, I think. Because I know that after this coat there will be a new coat coming on top, and that will be the clear coat. So I will finish this with clear coat and not with just oil, just to have like a better finish. So I'm using my sander, which I'm pretty happy about. It's quite light, it's new, and for me it's like the best buy I did last year because it saves me a lot of time sanding parts. This is a 150 millimeter disc, so bigger surfaces can be done as well. So a big improvement compared to the last table. So here it's still possible that you have some voids after sanding and so on, and then it's just a matter of filling all the cracks that you still had in your wood. So I'm using the glass cast 10 here, so the number of glass casts is saying like the maximum thickness you can pour. So the glass cast 3 is about 3 millimeters, so it just skinning surfaces with the resin. Then you have the 10 is for filling cracks and small objects, and then the 50th is for doing big pours. So later on this channel I'll also do a big pour with the glass cast into a silicone mold, but that will be coming online in the next few weeks I think. So I'm just adding a clear coat here, so it's a polyurethane, and then I'm sanding it flat again. So it was not very important for me to have it like flat on the surface. I just want to have a thick coat on top of it that I can flatten after. So then you're just left with like a thin coat of the polyurethane lacquer, and then you're sure that when you spray it you will have a good finish. So for this table I wasn't able to pass it through the drum sander, so I had to sand it by hand. So I've used a portable belt sander, I think it's called, with 40 grit, and then passed on with the Mirka again, just to sand everything flat to 400. And here I decided to try it with the glass cast 3, and as you can see you will have some bubbles. So bubbles are caused by can be moist into your wood, or the wood soaking like the resin in. So here I'm just clear coating it again, and I'm choosing for a satin finish. So it's a satin finish because here you see it glossy, and over time it will cure into like a satin finish. Why do I did a satin finish and not a glossy one? I think it's just a matter of personal opinion, personal liking. So let me know what you like most. For this tutorial I did 2 different finishes. So the first one, like you can see here on these 2 tables with the olive wood, it's with the clear coat, and then the walnut with the black will be finished up to high gloss by sanding and polishing. So here you can see like the dull finish of the satin finish. I think it adds like a luxurious feeling, and that way you're pretty sure as well with the UV that your table will stay the same color over time. So it's like a personal matter of choosing to do it with oil or having like a top coat on top of the entire table. So here I have a friend of mine who did the base of the tables. So he's pretty skilled with everything that has to do with welding, and he did an awesome job. So it's very important to have straight legs or like fully straight structure under your table to make sure that it's not warping over time, or that when you're pushing one side that it's not moving. So we were going for a finish in black, and then we chose for powder coating. So I paid a little extra for the powder coating, but it saved me a lot of time not having to coat it myself with black like I did in the previous video. Also, powder coating should be more resistant up to scratches and so on. So here's another improvement that I did. I've used some inserts this time to put in some bolts. So I got a lot of comments about people saying that I should try this because it's like more, it's a better finish and it's how it should be done. So you can still remove the top. In the first video, I just screwed it in with some normal screws to fix it permanently onto the base. So now up to the second type of finish. So the first one was with the PU lacquer, and this one is done by sanding up to grit 2500 and then polishing it all the way up to high gloss. So this takes quite a good amount of time. So here you can see, I think this should be around 800, and then I continue till 2500, and then I'm using a new Makita polisher, so with a soft and then first with a hard disc, and then I went on to the softer one for the softer finish. So in polishing, I think you should go to your local car shop or something to find the right polishing compounds, or you can order these one on Easy Composites as well. And here you can see the final result. So you can choose two different types of finishes. So this one is matte, so you can still see through, but it has like I think it's a nice finish. Let me know in the comments which you prefer. And then the black one is fully polished. So here you can see the finish of the first two tables, and this is the one installed in my living room in my apartment. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked this video. Make sure to see some of my other videos if you're interested, and leave a like, and don't forget to leave a comment. So thanks for watching, and see you guys in the next one.